village of West Concord as we welcome a new store, the West Concord Five and Dime.
Let's go back in history. The West Concord 5 and 10 started right across the street from its current location on the corner of Bradford Street, 1935. It was started by a fellow by the name of Pasquale Mealy, known as Patsy. Patsy didn't really run the business. He had a similar business in Newton, and his wife and a sister-in-law ran the business across there. After the war, he moved the business from there to Walden Kitchen is today. That's where I remember starting in working in the 5 and 10.
My name is Kathy Lowell. I worked here for about 30 years. I also, it was a childhood store for me where we got to do our Christmas shopping and get our penny candy and just be able to walk downtown. I now live in Nashua, New Hampshire, and come down a couple of days a week to help and work and have fun.
Hi, I'm Helen Haller, and I am the owner of Concord Flower Shop, diagonally across the street from the West Concord 5 and 10. So I've known Maynard as a neighbor and as a friend.
I'm Earl Smith. I moved to Concord in 1985 and discovered the store almost immediately thereafter. Was delighted to find it and have been coming here ever since. And it's a bittersweet moment that the store is closing, but I will have to say, I think Maynard certainly deserves a little time off.
So my name is Deborah Stark, and my business is Deborah's Natural Gourmet, which I'm the founder and CEO of.
I am Bonnie McGrath. I live here in Acton, and we've been here about 34 years. I was born at Emerson Hospital in Concord. I am an artist. My cards have been selling in there.
The 5 and 10 is, in some sense, the heart of West Concord, but it's a part of the body of West Concord, all of which is consistent with that heart.
When I think of West Concord Village, I think of a group of people, each of whom is in their own shop and barely has the time of day to catch their breath, much less time than to lift their heads and look and see how their neighbors are doing. And yet, when something happens, we're there for each other.
If you can't find it in the 5 and 10, you probably don't really need it. But if you can't find it in the 5 and 10, there's a pretty good chance you can find it somewhere in West Concord. There's paint stores, there's stores for crazy clothing. There used to be a grocery store, great grocery store, and there are a couple of restaurants.
West Concord has been special since my early memories in '51 because it's the place that people come to find what they're looking for. There's a little bit of everything in West Concord. That's the byline that I've kind of given to the 5 and 10 for the last 5 or 6 years. A little bit of everything in 4,000 square feet. But West Concord has that same thing from a village standpoint. Stores across the line. You can buy groceries. There's a couple of wine and liquor stores. There's there are now one, but there used to be 2 barbershops. Enough hairdressers and nail salons so that all the ladies can be coiffed and and filed well. It has a railroad station. And when we're not dealing with COVID, you can grab the train, park, grab the train, go to Boston for fun or for work.
The neighborhood definitely has changed over the years, and it's changed not only because Concord has grown and young, people who were little kids are now have children of their own, but because the political climate has changed, the social climate has changed, the climate change has changed, and also people's emphasis and what they're interested in has changed as well. And then Amazon. I mean, there's so many things that have changed the business picture in this country.
You wouldn't be able to do a birthday party and sew your pants all in one store. You wouldn't be able to hang a picture and make a pot holder all in the same store. And yet, the stationery aisle and the card aisle, but when you're doing cards, you need that special pen. So if you're gonna buy a card, you need to buy a pen to go with it. Contact paper and oilcloth all go together, but the lace runner does not, all of which we carry. So when you walk in this store, you're amazed. Take a basket, stroll the aisles, and meet your needs, and that's kind of the goal of the store.
Well, for the shop, it's all kinds of things. Like if we run out of paper clips, if we run out of string tags, or we run out of poster board, all those kinds of things. But I think what I'll miss the most is when I bring my 5-year-old grandson to work with me, and he's like, "Grammy, can we go to the 5 and 10? And we can come in here with, $2 or $3, and he can pick out 2 or 3 things." And he loves that toy aisle with all the little cubby holes, and picks out a few things to play with. So that's what I think I'll miss more than anything.
So the 5 and 10 had an incredibly cluttered front window. This is good. When I walked into the store, the aisles were really narrow, the shelves were high, and there was just all kinds of stuff. I just loved it. I'm a hardware store lover, and this place is like a hardware store run by, I don't know, the Wizard of Oz or something. It has hardware. It does locks. They sell underwear, candles. When I need something, I come here first, even if I suspect it might be too specialized an item. And rarely have I not found it here. I mean, I wouldn't come here for a 50-pound torque wrench, okay? But I would certainly come here for a crescent wrench.
Things that I find here, when my brother David came up from California to visit, and he didn't have gloves and he didn't have warm socks, we came here and he was able to get those here, and they're still his favorite socks and his favorite gloves, and that was years ago, and they're still going strong.
And I like looking at all their tools. I happen to like hardware stores. They're a lot of fun.
When I moved back to Concord in 1988 as an adult with children and a husband, I was looking for a job with mother's hours so I could be with my kids. And about a year after we lived here, I came down here and mentioned something to Maynard, and the next thing I know, I had a job. Best job. My first day on the job, even though I knew the store and thought I knew the store, I was totally overwhelmed because I had never been down cellar. So that in the back room was totally amazing to me. So it was a whole new gambit of things to learn now. Not only did you learn about pricing and that the bills all went the same way in the register and everything had to be marked, you also had to remember what was downstairs in case someone asked you for it.
So I'm often asked how I met Maynard and how our friendship grew over the years. And I can say that in the beginning, he was one of my only true friends because everyone in town was taking bets how long it would be before my business would go out of business. And I would meet him in the parking lot and we would talk about business and talk about family. And so our friendship goes back 30 years.
Well, Maynard is a very upbeat person. He's calm and even-keeled, and so if you're ever feeling stressed out about anything, just a conversation with Maynard will calm you right down.
He expects the best out of people. He's honest. He's friendly. And I really enjoy, whenever I come in the store these days, I always check to see if Maynard's in the store.
I met Maynard many years ago at the 5 and 10, and he's a very likable fellow.
He never bristled at me. He never treated me like a newcomer. He treated me as his next door neighbor and part of his community.
When he lived in Maine, I know a lot of people felt a little hole when they came in here because, they do enjoy the conversations, whether it's about something that doesn't have to do anything with the store or family. It's just could be the weather. And he makes them feel good because it was a moment in time. And I know some days he's very busy, but he always takes that moment. I remember one day I was waiting for him down front to come down, and it was probably for a key, and he didn't come down. So I left the register, and he was in the back of the store because someone just needed to kind of chat and unload, and that was more important than the key was at that time. And for that, you have to know that this man is a tower of strength in this community. He's very involved in a lot of committees because he cares.
So Deborah's Natural Gourmet opened in 1989. In October was the height of the recession. And Maynard was slogging through it just the way we were, only he had legs on the ground, a lot more experience than I did, and was able to talk me off the ledge quite a few times.
When I go in the store, I look for Maynard.
As I mentioned, we have had our West Concord Business Group meetings, and he's usually great with coming up with ideas, implementing things. If we need something, like we did a Light Up West Concord one year, he's the first one to offer to get glow sticks at cost for us or even donate them. He's very generous about what he provides to the rest of us in terms of our needs. And, like everybody will tell you, if he doesn't have it here, it doesn't exist. So
He's a man of so much knowledge of everything. And you could say he knows a tidbit about everything, but then when you talk to him, he knows a lot more than a tidbit about everything. He's got a strong will of community, of family. I think he makes a difference every day in everybody's lives that he comes in contact with. And there are some people that will not leave the store unless they talk to him. He doesn't want to let anybody down. He prides himself in having a little bit of everything. I know that in years past, when a storm has been predicted, and we used to have big, huge snowstorms, we haven't had those in a few years, but he would drive, or someone would drive, all the way to Worcester, where our major vendor was for batteries and ice melt and sleds and oil for your lamps and extra wicks. And so he always makes sure everybody has what they need.
He, as you know, went to school to work in agriculture. And then the Army called him, became a colonel in the Army, and then his father needed him, so he left the Army and came to work in this family business. So his advice to me was always around that balancing of family and business, because he had done that himself. And when I first met Maynard, he had some of his sons were in the business with him, and then they left to do something else in life. And then he, married Jean, and he acquired his stepson, Chris, who became his partner in this business. But it just, when you're dealing with family and business and you're trying to balance the two, it's so hard, and it's really hard to create that, feet on the ground and common sense. And that's what he was always so good at. I've always felt that Maynard's The 5 and 10 was the cornerstone of West Concord, not only because he was so interested in everybody who came through his doors. I mean, to him, what was so interesting about the business wasn't the fact that he sold pencils, but it was the fact he knew Billy and Johnny, who needed pencils for school, and he knew their parents and he knew their grandparents. And if you had any question about anything in West Concord or the history of West Concord, it was Maynard you asked.
We have both been in business a very long time, so we have gone through recessions and we've had our ups and downs in business, but he has always been a calm force among all the West Concord businesses, and he has been a leader, and he has been in a lot of the same committees as us. We have a West Concord Village community group that meets regularly when it's not in the middle of a pandemic. So he's been a part of that, and he's like an example for all of us, how we all should be and how we all want to be as business owners, because he never has an unkind word to say about anybody. He's the most positive person I think I've ever met, and a great example to all of us. And he's always willing to step up to the plate and help on any committees. He's been on many committees through the years, more than I would even know, I'm sure. So for that, of course, we'll miss all that, but he's not moving out of Concord, so he'll still be a part of a lot of things.
And I will say, I know that one challenge everybody who's in retail faces is shoplifting. And you would never think that that is something that you have to worry about in a town like ours, but it does. And I know that there's an organization in town that really tries to repair the harm, called Communities for Restorative Justice. And so they take the person who has caused the harm and they have them talk to the person to whom they have caused harm. And they try and make a circle so that everybody grows and everybody benefits. Is not the right word, but I'll use benefits from that experience. And Maynard was one person who not only sat in some of those healing circles, but agreed to hire some of those, in this case, young people who had stolen from him and caused harm. So he gave a place for those young people to grow up and to change their lives. And I think that was really spectacular.
The woman who started to work for my father, who had been working for Patsy Mealy and continued to work for my father, Mildred Ianello, Millie, was a great worker. She knew the business and was faithful. Over the years, we've had a number of people. Ann Flynn is one that I remember. Kathy Lowell, whom you talked with recently, is another one who's spent a lot of time here, moved her family, or her husband and herself, to Nashua, but since she grew up in West Concord, still comes back. Ann Flynn, I go back to because Ann worked for about 35 years. And Ann had a touch of perfection. Everything she marked had to be marked perfectly. And her initials were AWF. And we occasionally still find products and little memorabilia with AWF on them. I think one of the things that has been a mainstay and has built the reputation of the 5 and 10 is the little toy aisle. I talked with 3 young women, young to me, they're in their 40s, I believe, who were in here Friday afternoon. They grew up just down the block. And they said, all 3 of them mentioned early memories of coming in and looking up and down the toy aisle, having been given a quarter or whatever to come down and see what they could buy. The rubber duckies is a very interesting part of it. I don't know where the interest in rubber duckies came from, but we buy a variety of rubber duckies in many motifs from a company down in Fall River in New Bedford by the gross, 144 in a bag. And we've had them in the window. We change them around occasionally, but one whole big bay on the little toy aisle is those small rubber duckies. One thing that's again in the where have they gone is Slinky. My understanding is that the manufacturing plant that made Slinkies no longer operates, and from I can get them, have been able to get them from 3 or 4 different entities. They don't have them anymore. One advertisement for Slinkies, for the regular Slinky, the price was $23 retail. They used to be $5 or $6 here, $6 or $7 for the big one, I think.
The want book? The want book. We haven't talked about the want book. My father started with a notebook. It's a 5x8 notebook. And the people are trained that when they see something missing off the shelf to write down the item, as much of a description as possible. And we have a little 4-digit code on our price stickers that tells us where it comes from. And they should enter that too. It doesn't always happen, but reasonable part. And somebody comes in and says, "Can you get ABC?" Well, they write it down, name and a telephone number, and if we can find it,
when we get it, give them a call, they come in and get it. But the want book has been a part of the 5 and 10 since 1951. I don't know whether Patsy Mealy had one or not, but I know that it was something my father had, and it's been a tradition that we've continued. There's one up front now, and we go through 2 or 3 of these notebooks a year for items that we know we need, items that people come in and ask for. One of my plans that I've told a few people about is I have a little outline on the history of West Concord. I hope to get into the basement of the Concord Public Library and dig more deeply into whatever is available surrounding the history of West Concord. Whether it ever becomes a book or not, I'm not promising anything, but I just like that's a personal goal. I've got kids, grandkids, and a great-granddaughter spread across the country, and if COVID ever gets out of here and travel becomes more easily done, I hope to travel to see some of them. My wife and I had a piece in property in Maine. I still have it, and know that I'm going to need some place to go to do things, and I think that I'll spend a little bit of time up there. West Concord's going to be home. What'll I miss about it? Just the camaraderie of the business owners and the people that walk up and down the street, come into the business. Being able to say hello to a good number of people by name. Oh, I think it's the activity of the store. To run a business like this, it stretches the mind, stretches the body. And I'm going to have to work real hard to keep that going, to maintain the body. Because background, my wife and I were living in Maine for a little while in 2011 when she had a stroke. I became a caregiver, a primary caregiver. And 2 years later, our son, who was running the business, passed away unexpectedly, and that brought us back to West Concord. During the time while we were here, I was allotted 4 hours that I could come and work in the business. I would work from home, doing what computer work I could do, both before and after this 4-hour period. Jean passed away 18 months ago. Since that time, I have been spending somewhere between 8 and 12 hours a day, 6 days a week here. So it's a matter of compressing that kind of time and finding activity to keep me busy.
I just want to wish him all the best. I want him to enjoy Maine and his family. I want him to fly high.
So, Maynard, thank you very much. Really appreciate you and your store.
When I think of all the things I want to say to Maynard, there are so many, but they all boil down to the lesson I learned, not only from my parents, but from Maynard in real life, is that we have to be kind, and we have to be considerate, and we have to care for one another. And I think that's Maynard is, I think, the great reason that this neighborhood and this community has worked so well, is he's a constant reminder in how he behaves. He has this courtly, gentlemanly manner about him. He has an honesty about him. He's constantly reminding us all to be our better selves. So I think as long as we can keep that vision, this community will continue to do well. As far as what I want for Maynard himself, I want him to do all the things he's been wanting to do, which is to spend more time with his grandchildren, with his family, be able to kick his feet up. And I know he wants to write a book about the history of the town in West Concord, and I hope he makes the time to do that as well.
Hi, Maynard. I really have enjoyed having you in your store in West Concord, and I want to say thank you with all caps. And I hope to see you around town, here and there. And what I've always liked about you is the stories you tell of the old days, which pretty much matches my old days. It's the same kind of period in time.
Maynard, to my friend and my neighbor, I wish you well, and I wish you every happiness. And I promise that you're going to be constantly in the back of my head, reminding me to behave myself.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Maynard.
Thank you again, Maynard.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything you've done for me, my family, and the community. And I love you.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Am I good?
Yeah.
Okay.
If I'm standing in the passageway between two cubicles at work and the new employee has just moved in 2 cubicles down, it's as the monkey flies into their cubicle. The boxing nun. Do you remember the boxing nun? It was some kind of, this figure of a nun with 2 little boxing gloves, and I think you could, make her do this.